All, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. I should like to note, before we begin, that though, as it stands, I don't really feel good about this because we don't have any music playing, and that's because somebody stole my other telephone. Now I have 3 telephones. Somebody stole my second telephone that had its own internet access, so we could play the YouTube, the OST track that we built. Mind you, we are going to have to start phasing out the music altogether, because should we ever get to the point where we're actually afforded the opportunity to monetize the channel, that would be a big problem, having the music in there. Probably shut down the entire channel. I mean, if we do ever monetize the channel, we'll probably have to get rid of all the videos we've made with music in them and redo them in some fashion. So, I mean, because obviously if we're ever afforded that opportunity, we're going to have to go ahead and take it, because, I mean, we're worth it, A, and B, we are, for all intents and purposes, poor people. We're not wealthy, and we could very much use that measure of income, however small it might be. So, yeah, we aren't never intended to do this for that, but, yeah, we'll take that opportunity if it's allotted, for sure. And again, we deserve it, so who gives a shit? It's nothing wrong with that. I will say, though, that we will never, ever ask people to donate to us. Our services are provided to you absolutely free of charge. And as I was saying in the beginning, I should like to note that not only are we pumping out installation update packages almost daily, but we're doing it absolutely free of charge. If YouTube decides to pay us, fantastic. But we will never ask you to pay us, ever. So, to move along beyond that, we don't have music because my good second phone was stolen, and my third phone disappeared. We'll get to that towards the end of the video, but my second phone was stolen. I sent a message to it, because I figured maybe I'd lost it. Possibility. Maybe I just lost it. So I tried calling it, I tried sending messages to it. But then I thought, well, I'll go ahead and send a message to it just in case it is stolen, because that's what I'm thinking. I knew it was stolen. I was just hoping I was wrong. But I sent a message to it saying, you know, I brought you, person whom I know who it is that took it, I brought you into my home. You know, I for all intents and purposes, kind of took care of you pretty well. That's all I'd like to say on that matter. I took care of you pretty well, and you stole my phone from me, which I need in order to make videos, and you knew that. Honestly, that's how we really got to talking at all, was about the YouTube channel, really, let alone getting back to my place after drinks. But you know where I am. You know where I'll be. So you can give me the phone back, because I'm going to tell you now, if I have to find you to get the phone back, it's going to become a sincerely problematic scenario. And this person, they send me back a text saying, thank you. So I had to have the phone shut off, and I am going to have to find this person. I know where they will likely be. For the most part, I know where they're going to be all day, every day, day by day of the week. I have them tracked and mapped out. I just have decidedly not, I don't really want to have to confront them. It's going to be a shitty scenario. I don't want to have to do that. But obviously they're not giving the phone back. I do want it back. I'm going to have to pay to have it replaced. But as I said, we're going to have to phase out the music anyway, so whatever. We'll see what happens. Now, what I'd like to talk about in this video, A, is packaging, because this, obviously, it's labeled an installation update patch, which is with good purpose. It's not just a gimmick to talk about VR as programming. We are, in fact, intending to install the spotcasting program into you guys, so that you know exactly how it works and you can make use of it yourself. You can see it as it's happening, because that is what will make you the most potentially effective spotter that you can be, is seeing this happening, because it is in fact happening all over the place, all the time, all around you. These values are flying by you. They're right out in your face. 2, I'd like to address some more heavy proponents, or at least one more heavy proponent of the simulation theory. 3, I would actually like to discuss genuinely some of the advantages of the simulation theory. We'll get to the disadvantages in another video, because those are enormous. But okay, so to speak to the packaging, I'd like to give 2 examples. First example, the first video we opened up, we talked about Booker having made that video with the title, "What is our reason for being?" and who constructed the sim, or who designed, or whatever, who programmed the simulation, something like that. Now, our operator sent me a message saying that and of course I checked it, but the title is actually "Why Are We Here?" So this doesn't really apply so much, because there is a difference in the values there. The difference is not in the actual values presented. Why are we here? What is our reason? Almost precisely the same, presents as the same value, but the difference lies in the intention. So we can see that the intention was not actually to speak to our reason, but rather our nature. So that this actually doesn't apply the example I'm giving in the way that I'm giving it. However, it's still a good example, so I'm going to make use of it. Now, say Booker had intended to cast me. He had intended to cause for me to do this. Like, he wanted for me, for whatever reason, maybe in a negative way, he might have wanted to, and I'm not suggesting this to be the case. I'm certain that Booker did not have me or this channel in mind in the slightest when he made that video. I'm sure he'd probably forgotten about us for the moment. But, well, maybe not forgotten about us. I think he likes me pretty well, and I'm pretty sure he is, invested in the Contact project. He doesn't put a hell of a lot of effort into it so far. He's been slacking off on that end, but he's got a lot of work to do. He's a big deal there, so we'll leave him to that. He is his own director of his own network, or his own organization at least. He's building his own initiative, so he's granted that leeway. However, he is slacking the fuck off, and he should be a hell of a lot faster than he is. That said, let's say Booker wanted to cast me for whatever reason. Could have been a negative connotation, perhaps. He wanted just to upset me and to cause for me to slip up and make a mistake, which I did. I'm not sure anybody caught it, but it happened. It's still happening. But say he wanted for me to react with not only a video for a positive reason. He wanted this video to come out. He wanted to make me do this, get me to do this, incite this out of me. But not only that video, but a whole series of videos, which he could easily have foreseen coming. I'd have foreseen coming. You can see these values lining up and how they're going to fall like dominoes when you set them up in a certain way. Now, all that he would need is to know certain values in play regarding my system, my value system, my personality. He would have to know, A, that I have a fervor against religious considerations, or just religious content or context even, is because where you ask to reason, when you put that value into play. Okay, step back. First thing you'd have to know is that when you place that value of reason, of questioning reason, asking for reason, which "why are we here" does question reason. It's just the intention is different, as I stated. But the value presented is precisely the same. When you question that, what you're doing essentially is worshiping. That's the same thing we do with what we consider to be a God concept, is we give worship by suggesting that it's affording us our reasoning, that it's giving us our meaning for being, that we owe that much to it, essentially. And so, knowing that that's the value put into play with questioning reason, and especially associating a certain personality, a certain identity to that reason, the computer programmers who made the simulation are now the people providing us our meaning or reason. that's religious. Essentially, that's modern religion shit. So you present that value, all you'd have to know is that I am, firmly against that. A. B, that I'm exceptionally prideful, and in that, part B too, you'd have to know that not only am I prideful, but that the pride that I have in myself is earned. And C, you'd have to know that this pride is directly attached to this channel, and that what represents the channel, and that what represents the initiative ultimately, that I am very proud of myself and what I've built and what I've managed to accomplish, and that my accomplishments and what I'm proud of is the initiative, is you guys, is this channel. And then you would just have to associate something that indicates a religious factor as a representative factor of that. So, questioning reason and applying it to a certain identity, which True Life Stories, he knows that we're working on the Contact Project, which associates us. We have that relationship, this collaboration in play. So thereby, anybody working with the Contact Project effectively represents the initiative, which effectively represents Soul Mechanics, which effectively represents me, and that pride, which can border on arrogant at times, if I get upset. And that's going to upset me, that's going to disturb me, that religious factor. That's all he needs to know. And he would know by looking. All of these values are available. All of these values are readily available in any of the videos. Watch a few videos. Readily available on my Facebook page. Readily available on the initiative page. You can find out everything you need to know to spotcast somebody. They're going to be showing it to you. All you have to do is look around. We have this internet and play with these social medias and such. Anybody who has the gall to step up and present themselves, they're going to be giving you every fucking thing you need to take advantage of them effectively, should you choose to. And mind you, taking advantage is advantage. It's not wrong, just like the word manipulate. Manipulating people in order to take advantage of them is not necessarily a bad thing if you're doing it for a good reason and you're doing it to be helpful to both people, to both parties, to all parties. There's nothing wrong with that. It is in fact a good thing, and that's what we do need to be doing. I encourage all of you to take advantage of me to the best of your abilities. That's why I'm here. That's what being a director is meant to be. I'm here to serve you guys. I'm here to direct the initiative on behalf of you. So that's why I'm teaching you to spotcast me. Now this, I'm going to think, is probably an instance of the world having spotcast me into making this series of videos, because I don't think that Booker did it intentionally, but he did do it. In deliberate, it was deliberately accidental, in a manner of speaking, as I've used that so many times before. That is, in fact, a favorite title of mine, deliberately accidental, because that's what I think all of this is, really. So, all you have to know is those values. Put that value into play and get the reaction out of me. Given that title, he would know well enough that I am, again, bordering on that arrogance, wherein I'd have the gall to step up and act. It wouldn't just be a reaction insofar as regards my feelings of it. It would be an actual physical, material reaction on my part. I would step up and do something. It's in my nature. As much is known. Anybody who knows me well, you have to know somebody well enough to know what major factors are in play, what primary values make up their system. Now, what would be a good way to spotcast people into believing something as ludicrous as a simulation theory? It's very simple, and it only takes one word. So this dude Bostrom, he puts into play this theory about the simulation theory, and these ridiculous, essentially commentaries. They're not even full-fledged suggestions that he says that, well, we must be living in a simulation because we might be able to create one in the future. But then he gives that kind of bargaining chip, conclusion that we saw on the Wikipedia page. Now, you take advantage of Wikipedia because that's what most people are going to be this generation. These generations are going to be going to Wikipedia, a lot of them, for their information. Why? Because it's very shallow layer to the investigation process. You're going to find face value, very shallow instances, just values that are swimming at the top of the pool. on Wikipedia, and that's as far as most people are going to go because they don't have as great an attention span as is required to do a deep dive investigation into things unless they're severely invested in it. You have to build the interest to get somebody invested, and this is how you do it. So you suggest to them, you just make one suggestion, and this is one I noticed is sticking out at me the whole time. I wanted to mention it, but I didn't have a clear reason to mention it until I came up with this idea to present packaging, which when you present primers and cues is essentially your packaging and installation program, and you deliver it. You have a delivery mechanism, which, as I stated, we have Wikipedia, we have the shallow interests of most people in this day and age. Now, what would you say is the single most defining characteristic, or at least the most mentioned, most commentated defining characteristic of the recent generations? What would be, in a word, what has most defined them insofar as at least widespread concern or consideration is concerned? I would have to say the word I know that pops up the most is entitlement. This sense of entitlement, this sense of them being entitled to something regardless of their age, regardless of their experience, regardless of their upbringing, regardless of their history, their bloodline, whatever might come into play to bring to mind any context regarding entitlement. That's what they feel entitled, as though, like they say with the millennials, that they feel entitled so much so to the point where that they feel as though they should be able to sit on their ass and do fucking nothing. Everything should be handed to them, and if it's not handed to them precisely as they'd like for it to be, then they throw a tantrum and their parents sue you and blah blah blah. That's how it goes with this offense Olympics. That's what we're getting at ultimately with the Greta Thunberg thing. We're getting to that artificial reality aspect, but this is just a sidebar to that. So he presents it saying that if you this is a very persistent ultimatum. There's no two ways about it. If you do not believe in the simulation theory, you are not entitled to blah. Doesn't matter. Once that word comes into play, that's the value. That's going to hit. You tell them that they're not entitled to something if they don't do this first thing, and that will cause for them to take action in that regard. And of course, the simulation theory is easy. It's a modern spot. It's a modern take on the values that are already in play, which is how religion in itself is so effective to begin with, because religion plays on values that are already in the system, where we speak to things like the Adam and the Eve in the other Deeper Than You Think video, the Adam and the Eve, the Adam being that what structures, the Eve being that what comes before what comes next. Thereby we have construct and we have time. These are the values that are in play at the fundamental basis of all reality. Those are the primary values of everything, and that's really the divine dichotomy, touching at the divine dichotomy, touching at the structure of eternity, the paradox of existence, is that those two factors, that first second, is what creates time. Construct, time, or change rather, and the implications attached to that are staggering. I think we'll do a second video for the Adam and the Eve. We don't have the time for it right now in this one, but that's all he has to present is those values that line up with the values that are already in play. This is a tactic called anchoring in psychology. It's when you place kind of factoids that are true into a lie. When you tell a lie, you put little pieces of it that are known to be true, and that way it lines up with the brain and causes for it to accept it. It's a kind of like a suggestive implication that slips through, again, like hypnosis, like spotcasting. So that's one measure of anchoring. There are other kind of aspects to the concept of anchoring that come into play. We'll get to those later. But that's how you effectively use anchoring in one regard, is to make use of values that are already in play and just switch them up, which this just puts a modern day twist on the age-old consideration that reality is an illusion, which we've already had going in play with all of these sci-fi stories like The Matrix and such. This is an appealing consideration that's already there. The mapping for it, the schematics already laid out, All you need to do is apply your own terminology, apply your own twist, which is what they do here with the simulation theory, and that's why it's so easily accepted, though nobody really knows a damn thing about it. Like that, there's so much to take into consideration regarding this simulation theory that everyone is overlooking. We're going to get into it with this series of installation packets for you guys that is hopefully effectively going to teach you how to make use of the programming that made sense of this shit in the first place. And again, we're not saying that the simulation theory is absolutely incorrect. It could very well be true. I mean, it's actually seemingly correct to some extent or another. I mean, for all we know, computer programming could be the shifting glyphs. It could be Aussie, Satori. It could be the fundamental operating system of reality. Could effectively be a computer programming, system. But that's what it is, regardless. It's what's always been here. There's no difference to it. It's the same thing we've always been talking about, just with modern day terms attached, modern day aspects attached to the initial values that were already present. So to speak to a couple more proponents, well, one more proponent is glitches. Glitches do occur. I'm going to give two real quick stories. One, I was riding when my mom was in the nursing home. Kay and I went down to visit her. Kay went home. She got a ride home. It was later on in night. Kay got a ride home, and I was taking the rapid. When I got off the rapid at Cudell, I started riding my bike west. Yeah, I started riding my bike west back towards here, and somehow I blanked out for a second. I lost track. I was just thinking of something in my mind, just drifting off, having some kind of a reverie. And within an instant's worth of time, like a moment, like under a minute, I'm suddenly all the fucking way down on the east side of Cleveland on the bridge. And there's no possible way that I could have gotten there. I mean, it took me hours to get back home. That happened. And that was crazy experience. I still cannot explain that. B, the phone that I have, the third phone that I was going to use to play music, because I have some recorded for us on it, it's not loud enough to hear it, so it wasn't worth trying. That was a fail. However, I'm searching for this phone. I cannot find it. Now, I figured I had it in my other jacket, but I left that up at Mom's place. That jacket has holes in the pockets wherein the phone could fall through into the lining of the jacket. This jacket is nearly brand new. I mean, I've had it for a while, but it's in brand new condition. It's in perfect condition. There's not a single hole anywhere in this, or at least there wasn't before tonight. Because what happened when I went searching for that phone, and I realized that I could have lost it in the other jacket because it could have fell through a hole in the pocket, is it just showed up in the lining of this jacket, which again, there are no holes. Pockets, everything's perfect, in perfect condition. I actually just had to cut a hole in the lining of this jacket to get that phone out, because there is no other way to get it out. There's no way it could have gotten in there. How the fuck did that happen? And that also speaks to the instances of things disappearing on me, which I have my own theories about why that happens, actually. That could or could not be glitches, may or may not speak to the simulation theory, who knows. Now, a quick advantage of the simulation theory, if I can remember it. Now it's slipping my mind. Shit. Just a second. Okay, never mind that. I remembered it, and actually it's not really an advantage. Okay, I'll bring it up just briefly. What the simulation theory does, in effect, and the reason why I was startled by Booker's title there, although it wasn't surprising, it was disturbing in a I'm not saying anything against Booker. Your videos are awesome. Nothing wrong with that. But what it does, in effect, insinuating worship to these entities, these people that created the Matrix, as it were, people who created the simulation, is insinuate worship or godlike presence to the computer programmers, which in effect ultimately does what? It gives humanity a reason to worship itself. It presents the idea of humanity worshiping itself as though it were God, which of course is a good thing. It is an appropriation that's necessary. It is real. It is true. Humanity, for all intents and purposes, is one with God and is the most influential presence of intelligence as regards, you know, the representation of God that we know of. So there's all of that. I'm way out of time. I'm sorry, guys. I thought this was going to go quicker. Anyways, Kila Salai, Terbiuni Ciari, Namaste. Thank you all for watching, man. Keep up the fucking support. Anybody who is, I'm sorry if I piss you off. I will rectify and reconcile. Namaste.